Hey guys, thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Up Academy podcast. I'm excited to announce our first event that we're going to be doing while all of you guys are at Equip Expo through the Green Up Academy called the Green Up Gathering. It's going to be on October 16th, which is Wednesday night while you're at Equip Expo. It's going to be at 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. at Main Event in Louisville, Kentucky. If you've never been to Main Event, think of it like Dave & Buster's on steroids. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have amazing barbecue and food. We're going to have a keynote speech from me. We're going to be talking about your business moving forward in 2025 and things you can expect through us at the Green Up Academy. We're also going to be having unlimited games, unlimited arcade time, bowling, and just getting to hang out with all the people who you've met through the Green Up Academy, through the lawn and landscape industry in one place in a small setting. So it's only $60, guys. It's an amazing value. We're going to have giveaways from Ballard Products, Yeti, and much, much more. So we want you to come, and we're going to be announcing and launching this on August 12th, which is Monday night at 5 p.m. It's going to go live. And like I said, these 40 spots, we feel very confident they're going to fill fast. So make sure you do that. We're going to announce it on our Instagram, our Facebook, and through an email, and of course through our website at thegreenupacademy.com. So you guys make sure you're there. We're really excited. I can't wait to see you and meet you guys in person, those who I've talked to online for many, many years and a lot of time. So looking forward to it. Make sure you come to our Green Up Gathering.
Welcome to the Green Up Academy podcast with Alex Kirby, where we focus on helping you level up your green industry business. Whether it's marketing, finance, employees, or strategy, we talk about everything on this show to help you apply it to your business and change your family and company's future for decades to come. Here's your host, Alex Kirby.
What's up, guys? Alex here from the Green Up Academy podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to introduce you here to my guest today, Stephen Cope with Cope and Crew out of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Stephen is someone I met a few months ago on Instagram. He's one of my favorite guys that I've talked to because he understands the main thing, keeping it the main thing. He's a strong believer. He has a great insight. His company's growing, approaching that $1 million revenue mark. And what I really like that you'll see here on this episode with Stephen is that he has built his business around his life, not his life around his business. He has a plan for what he wants his business to be like, but he has a greater purpose and plan for his family life. And so that comes first and business comes second. So you guys are going to hear great, great things. If you haven't listened to an episode all the way through in a while, make sure you listen to this one. This is Stephen Cope with Cope and Crew out of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Here we go. Stephen, first off, I'm trying to think did we just connect on Instagram? Is that all it was?
I think so. I think
The world of Instagram.
Yeah, I think it was Instagram. And, when we first started the business, like you get targeted with different people, and especially when we created the Cope and Crew, which obviously got a personal, Instagram, but yeah, I think we really connected when you said something. I can't remember what it was about maintenance clients or something. And I think I was one of the only people that actually commented on your thing that actually said, I don't know, drop them. And like, it's like, that. Wait a second, we need to talk. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm stoked to have you on today. I know we talked a few weeks ago, and we have so many similar interests. And I think that there's not that, it's funny. Are you over 40 yet?
Yeah, I'm 41.
All right. There's not many. I don't get to talk to that many guys for whatever reason. Like, there's this weird gap between ages, right? You get I either run into 60-year-olds who've been in it for 40 years or guys who are like within 5 years of starting, 5, 6, 7. So you being in that middle, I'm 32. I think it would bring a lot of insight. So if you don't mind kind of sharing with people, you have such a cool story. I think anyone listening, it's going to be a really great, fun episode. Share people, your background of where you came from in ministry and how you got to owning a lawn and landscape, hardscape company. Just kind of give us a couple minute story on that, because it's a pretty fun one.
Yeah, man. So, I grew up, pushing a lawnmower and helping my dad, like I, told you a minute ago, I was Western North Carolina, and he would go do a few yards for a little extra cash, because he was like a student minister growing up. And so you got to take those extra little things. And so I would help him, and it was me and a Walkman and Garth Brooks in the ears and just pushing a mower. And so, I grew up, around it. And then, went to college, North Greenville up here, and got into ministry, started leading worship. And then started working at New Spring Church in 2009, as a worship leader, moved to Columbia. And then, came back up here in 14 or 15 up in Greenville, to kind of work for New Spring, centrally. And during all that time, we would have, our yards. That was my hobby on Fridays and Saturdays, was doing things to those. And then, in 18, I felt a call to step out, and I'm working in another church just for a quick stint, just kind of, it was pretty quick. It was honestly just a few months, and just realized like that wasn't what the Lord had for me. And so we kind of stepped out in faith. And after a couple months, we decided to jump in with a friend of mine who owned a landscape business down in Columbia, and we started a division up here. And I got back on a mower for like 2 years and just hustled and, worked my tail off, lost like 20 pounds. Just, through the South Carolina summer.
Sweat.
And then in 2020, which, what a year to start something. My gosh. Like,
what a year.
Yeah. So that towards the end of 2020, we'd had a couple of things happen, honestly, with like guys that were just worked with me, because I was working for somebody else, that my wife and I just kind of decided hey, this guy does really good work and he makes a certain salary. And we just kind of felt the Lord telling us to be generous with these guys. And we would just like, get them some new shoes and little things like that. And when those little things started happening, we started feeling like the Lord almost whisper. And even at night, I would like wake up and like started feeling like it's time to go do your own thing and like be that guy as a business owner. Now it's time, like you've basically passed the test. Now it's kind of time to go do it. Buy a tractor. I'm like, I've never driven a tractor. And I'm like having these like middle of the night arguments with God, and tell my wife the next morning. She's like, you'll figure it out. I was like, I've never owned a John Deere. We'll do it. Sure. So we, I think October, November of 2020. In November, I think we officially launched Cope and Crew. So, bought a tractor, bought a mower, and it was me on a mower and doing small tractor work. Like our first business cards are probably around here somewhere that say small tractor work, mulch, sod, lawn maintenance. That was the big thing. And because that's how you have to,
you got to
start on a mower. So it was just
easiest point of entry.
Yeah, man. Yep. And so that was us. But we just knew at the end of the day, when we started it, I knew the things that I liked about working for somebody else in the landscape business and what I didn't like. And so, on the negative side of it, I was working almost so hard that I was getting home and I was just like biting at my girls, and I was exhausted. And my wife would be talking to me at 8:00, or one of my girls, and my eyes are crossing because I'm so tired. And just like, I just wasn't present, I noticed. And I was like, this can't be it. And so, we said, when we start this thing, it's going to be me on a mower for a little bit, but like the end goal wasn't that. And we knew that starting into it. And so, man, now, we kind of went into it also like, hey, let's learn some landscape design stuff and let's get some software to do that. And, my wife and I, she really jumped in and kind of headed that up, and just kind of took one little step at a time and grew it. And we always kind of feel like if, we've got almost a saying in our house that like, if we don't always have either something small or big that we're kind of putting big faith in, then we're not actually exercising our faith. So for us, it was just kind of like, all right, now we've got this, we started the business. Now what's the next little thing? What's the next little thing? I've got them right now that I'm like, okay, what am I trusting for to increase, or what am I maybe trusting for that I need to cut out in the business? And so we've always it's kind of the same mindset. So we still feel like babies in it, because in the grand scheme we are. We're only in year 4.
3.5. Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, I'll be year 4 pretty soon. or, 4 years, pretty soon.
Yeah.
And, but to look back now at 2020, like where we started to where we are now,
Crazy.
I mean, in the jobs that we're doing now, I can't imagine what's coming, if
Right.
that thought of past faithfulness of God, like is proof of like future faithfulness,
Yeah.
then
What could happen?
what's going to happen? So,
I love that. So what was that first Christmas like? You quit your job, November, you start a company in November.
yeah.
What was that first like holiday season? When I mean by that is, one, finances are obviously stressful when you start a business, but two, what was all the family saying? Okay, so what are you doing? Like, I remember when I started, right? I was a pastor as well, and I quit my job November 14th. And so first Christmas, people were like, wait, you just quit your job and you're going to go start mowing stuff? What was that first Christmas like with people around the table?
Yeah,
What was
man.
that?
Well, naturally, like with a job, when I was leading worship, especially at New Spring in like the heyday, if anybody in South Carolina knows, like New Spring was a giant church.
It's a big deal.
It is a giant church.
Yeah,
And
big deal.
so it's a very sexy job, from what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it's like, man,
Yeah.
you're playing in front of all these people. Like, how cool is it? You get to play guitar and sing for a living. I'm like, yeah, but you know, that it was great and it was ministry and and I love it. I mean, we go there now and it's just like, I love ministry. And
Yeah.
so my family being, believers, they have seen us in the journey. They saw us in the journey with stepping out in faith and doing this. And honestly, it was pretty cool. Everybody, like, one of the biggest statements in our company still comes from my uncle, that it was from around Christmas that first year. They were actually at our house the other night, hanging out, and we all like went swimming this past Saturday and had dinner and hung out. And he said, well, it's been 4 years. He said, I'm so proud of you. He said, how long did it take? Because this statement, he said, when you get into this, he said, one thing I know after being, 6 years old, it takes as long as it takes. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're going to see, if you commit to do it right the first time, a job's going to take as long as it takes. And so, I mean, just in our conversation a minute ago, I can't control when sod gets here, but you know what? When it does get here, it's going to be great. And we're going to make it solid. This giant retaining wall we're doing, I'm going to tell you a 2-week time frame, but it might be 3 because it's going to be right. And so, honestly, my family was, they were pretty proud and excited for us. Financially, for the family, I mean, we actually sold our house to start the business. We went all in.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I didn't tell you that part.
I love that.
We put the house on the market, and that was actually our first house that we bought, that I can actually see from my window right now. I can see the top of that house.
So did you rent while you, like, what
we
was
did.
the?
We did. So we sold that house, and that provided us a way to pay cash to start the business on the equipment that we needed. We took like a 5-year term on a couple of the things, like, and it was like, that's fine. Made an easy payment on it. And then we set aside a 6-month salary for ourselves, like very reasonable 6-month salary, so that everything could go into the business. And then I could start hiring people, so that I'm not getting in the place where I'm dying and hating my life again. And so our first Christmas, man, it was great. We rented a little farmhouse about 6 minutes from where I'm at right now. It had 4 acres of land, and we loved it. Our girls had the woods and a barn out back, and we used to just go shoot BB guns back there. And it was honestly, my girls think back at that time, and it was a sweet season.
That's awesome.
It's tough on me starting a business and figuring out how to do it, but it was a really sweet season, and we were there for a couple years.
I want to hone in on this quote your uncle said, because I think what he's saying, I wrote down 3 words I think it's saying, and it's not who I am. So I want to make sure I don't gloss over this, because this is huge. It takes as long as it takes. Does that mean, is he talking about patience, trust, and quality?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what he's talking about?
Yeah. He was referring, I think it started, he's like, so what equipment are you going to have? I said, I'm getting a John Deere 2025 backhoe. He said, man, I've messed some places up with those. He was like, even a small tractor, you get a backhoe and you hit a side of a house. And he was like, if I've just learned, and if you just, my uncle is just, I love his pace. He's just like real even keel.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't get riled up about too much. Big Georgia Bulldog fan, so he's been happy these last 10 years.
Yeah, he
But
has been.
he's like, yeah, just it takes as long as it takes, and he's like, that's just what I know. I mean,
I'm picturing Cy Robertson right now.
yeah, yeah, it's totally.
Or Phil
No,
is
totally.
who I'm picturing.
And he's like, hey, I mean,
yeah,
you're gonna you can really mess some stuff up if you just try to hurry through. And there's plenty of guys. There's plenty of guys that's like, yeah, I can get to you. I can get to you tomorrow. I can do whatever. And it's like, all right, but for us, we'll be to you when we're to you. I mean, you can see the calendar right now. I'm saying we're mid October.
yeah.
But you know what? Like when we're with you, we're with you. Like
we're all in.
We're all in,
Yeah,
both feet on the ground, whole crew, and we're there. So we've just honestly stuck to it.
Great insight for anyone listening, because this industry will make you feel like you're in a rush when you're the only car in the drive-through. I mean, It makes you feel like there's urgency all the time, that you gotta go, and so that is really rich. All right, let's move on to the second part of this then, because I know this is important to you as it is me. So as you've started your company, how have you maintained this work-life balance that you enjoy? Because I know it's something, you have daughters, you have a wife, and it was something like you just said a second ago, you're like, I was hiring people and making sure I didn't kill myself, with working like crazy.
Yeah.
How kind of define what that means for you, and what does that look like for you at Cope and Crew?
Yeah. So, I mean, it started from the beginning. One of the first things we did when we got, our first laptop was so one of my jobs at New Spring was that I was operations director for worship for the state. And so best practices and like all that kind of thing, like vision, values, and standards, that was like my thing. And so I'm like, we have to create this for our company. So before I even hired anybody, like it was like me and my wife and our girls, like y'all are the first crew, I wrote those down and typed them up and created a thing to where we give them to our employees of like, this is who we are. And so we defined it from the start, and I always resonate with things that I see often of like, I mean, I saw something the other day. It's like, hey, if you get to take your kids to school and take your wife to lunch on any given day, you're already a successful entrepreneur. So chill out. I'm like, 100%. Our maintenance division right now is large, is small enough. I could be out doing the route right now. 100%. I could be doing the route, but I got to make pancakes and bacon for 7 little girls this morning that had a sleepover here last night because it's their last day before school. Give me that life. Give me that life every day, because that's what my girls will remember. What will they remember? So we had to like define that early, before we were anything, before we were the size that we are. We had to be faithful in the small things. And we're like, hey, I'm going to get a few months into this. And I went ahead and hired a few guys that were graduating from Clemson, and they were super guys. They didn't know too much about lawn maintenance, but I taught them because they had character. And those guys helped us get through kind of that spring, summer. And I was able to breathe, even though it's like, I could easily do this route, but I was able to spend time, with my girls early on. So man, like, I think for me, like, I don't think it's as hard as a lot of people think. I mean, because you tell everybody else where your values are, by where you
Based
put your
on your
time,
choices.
your choices, where you put your time.
Yeah.
And so, yes, plenty of guys get into this world, and it's very easy to work from dawn till dusk. And just be grinding. And that's great. And if that's motivated, if your family is good with that, and you're just like storing up and you know that there's an end to that, that's great. But don't do it at the cost, for us, at least me. I'm like, I don't want to do it at the cost of missing my daughters in these like prime times of their life. And so, that's why it's worth it for me. It's worth it for me even now to have a few guys on the maintenance crew. and try to almost instill that in them where it's like, hey, I'm going to pay you good enough. Take the freaking weekend and enjoy your family. And go do some other things. And so now it's getting to the place where it's like, okay, now we're actually able to like pass that value along to our employees.
I love that.
And so, yeah, man, it was just a big deal from the start.
I just recorded before this my little I'm a big 410s fan.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I talked about with that, is why it's so important to give yourself extra time. And if you're not ever having time to work on the business, you're always working in it. And if you don't give yourself I don't know if you guys work 410s, but
my guys kind of work the takes as long as it takes, mentality, but also like reasonable. And so, yeah, my maintenance guys are probably 410s. I am kind of a 410 guy. I'll be available on Friday if the guys need me, but I think I've told you before, I have a separate phone to where often starting Thursday evening, I'll switch over to that other phone kind of until Monday again. And I'll periodically check if there's a fire I need to put out. But I mean, one of the things we also like, I had to preach to myself and still do is most of the time I don't have to let other people's freak out become my freak out. Like I have to like manage that. That's and great. So if my guys need me, then I'll get them. So
one of the best quotes I heard a couple of years ago was it'll be there Monday.
Yeah.
Like, and I've talked about this on the show, the flame, fire, smoke, theory, which is like, hey, if it's just smoke, it'll be okay. There's a little bit of I said spark. If it's a spark, hey, something need to be addressed in the next few days. If it's a fire, let's go put it out immediately. Yep. But know the difference. I really love that. Okay, awesome. You kind of hit on this a little bit, but employee culture is the subject for our crew members and my guys this coming month, August. And I define culture is the atmosphere and the attitude of a company. So the way the people attitude, the way the people personally feel. So you have to bring in the right people. So attitude, and then the atmosphere is the one you create. And when you get those two things right, it creates the culture. So I don't know. I don't know where I got that from. I just kind of made it up as I was preparing for this month.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but how do you build your culture? What's your goals with your culture at your company, and what does culture mean to you?
Well, there's been times in our culture that my, I came from ministry, and so my heart is always bent towards people first. So that starts with employees first. And so it's unfortunately happened more often than not that my kindness has been mistaken for weakness. And I've been taken advantage of like a lot with the early employees, and they've burned a lot of bridges for us, and they did some damage to equipment. They did some damage to me just personally with words, and then just to honestly to a lot of clients and people who I have respected and known for a long time, that we took care of them, and then these guys really messed things up, and it like kind of hurt those relationships. And it's like, man, that really sucks, because I could have been the guy out on the mower and making sure it was right. Every place is perfect, but I try to trust in people because like I said, committing to like have a balance, and I want to be here when I'm old. I want to be around, and I don't want to, I want to die of a heart attack at 43, and so I'm committed to do that. And so we just kind of kept committing over and over. Like we felt like God called us to this for this season of our life, however long that is to do this. And into doing that is still people first. And I still believed in the pipe dream of like people first and employees first. And so, like I said, that's why we pay them well. That's why we like communicate with them well. And these guys understand that we value them for more than just the product they offer us, into which they offer clients. And so there are a lot of intangible things that we do with them. Like, so they know our vision, values, and standards, and that's great. Paper, something on paper is great, but if they don't see it from me,
You have to live it out.
yeah, man. And so it's so cool for me to, right before I, jumped on here with you. I mean, I talked to my main project guy, and I was like, hey man, I need you to represent me with this county inspector at this thing and just answer all his questions, go do this. He's like, I got it, and so like he's able to speak and know the language that he needs to communicate. Even as he's hiring, he's working to find some more guys. He was like, man, I want to trust them around your girls. And if I can't, if I feel like I don't have that vibe, then they're not with us. I'm like, dude, like, how do you get these people? I mean, it took a while, but now, we've got them. And so we've just kind of lived it out in front of them, and they see our balance. And, every so often I'll have them come here and work on a job at our house, and so they get to kind of be around us and have dinner with us as their, they built us outdoor kitchen last year. And so like we spent 2 weeks together, and, once they got half of it up and running, I'm, making them some barbecue on the green egg, and we're like doing life together,
yes.
and it's just a cool thing, man. And my maintenance guys are the same way. They take care of some houses in the neighborhood, and a lot of times they'll end it, they'll end their day. And so, I mean, I think I've told you I homebrew. And so a lot of times they'll come over at the end of the day, and I'll pull them something off the tap. And I'm like, they're like loving it. And so we just spend 10 minutes and we get
Is that delicious? Is it just delicious?
Dude.
I'm not a beer guy, so I can't I wish I could experience what you're saying in my mouth,
so
but I can't. So what is that like home brewing? Let's not glaze over that.
I've been doing it for 2 years now, 2 years this week. All Office fans will be really happy to hear and laugh about this. But Andy Bernard would be very proud. I actually did Cornell online and like did their whole course in brewing. And yeah, my wife even made me buy a Cornell shirt. I was like, I have a Cornell, t-shirt, but, man, I love it. So I love good craft beer. And so, I'm actually brewing for a wedding this fall and doing a stout, an Oktoberfest, and an IPA. Yeah, man, like I love doing it and making good stuff.
Is there dreams of that? Maybe having a brewery one day?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I said, like,
sweet.
For us, everything is like this.
Yeah.
For right now in our life, God has called us to this, and we're in it, man. Yeah. And I'm here. The cool thing is like, man, what if this thing could be self-sustaining, and I could actually like do something with that? What I would love, honestly, is to do like a homebrew shop in Traveler Just and have a small brewery in it where we sell homebrew supplies, and I can actually teach other guys how to do it.
Ooh, that's cool.
And just have a little brewery in there, and
workshops and all that.
Yeah, man. Do workshops because I love teaching. And so brew days around here are a blast. I mean, I'll start early in the morning, and I've had guys over before, and we'll, or even if we do them in the evenings, and we'll do a fire outside if it's in the fall, and do a brew. Nice. And smells so good. I mean, and it's just a lot of fun. If you find the right one that you like, it's a really fun hobby. We have an Oktoberfest party here every year. And so I'll have like 50 guys, and yeah, man, it's
September through December, bro, is my favorite time of year.
Oh yeah.
I love the leaves changing, the weather change, the sweatshirt only, fire pit. Oh my gosh, you got me all.
That's it, man.
I'm almost like dreaming about it as you say that. That sounds so nice. So I'll get off I don't want to get off the beaten path. We don't got too much more time.
You're good.
All right, let me ask you this next one. This is awesome. I think you could give a lot of benefits. Cash flow management. It's one subject over the last 3 weeks. I did an episode on it the other day. With this economy, recession, so many guys who took out all these loans in the beginning of 2020, 21, 22, when prices were low, and then they've risen, and then work's slowing down because people don't have the money. What do you do to manage cash flow? Do you have tell us your tips and tricks, percentage of revenue you keep in the bank, any insights you could give that aren't from me? Because people I know, I'm always talking about it. I think it might, fall on deaf ears. What are things you guys do to be healthy in that area?
Man, a lot of prayer. Like for us, it's making sure. For me, it's making sure that balance with like what am I doing on a credit card versus paying it off, pretty quickly,
Yeah.
Is in balance. But having a system where we do deposits, like where we do we've now upped it to a 50% deposit for any projects.
Yep. I
And
love that.
what I do to keep it balanced. So right now, I mean, like I said, we're out in October. If I just got something for October, I'm not sending them a deposit because by that time it's going to not feel like if it's going to feel like I'm getting paid half of the job. And so what we do now is I'll book out, and if we're usually within 2 weeks of that job, they'll get a deposit invoice.
Ooh, I like that.
And
do you do 10% to hold your spot and then 40%?
No, I just do.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I just get them to do it. I'll kind of keep communicating, and every job is different. Like looking at so many of these, like a lot of these are booked. They're way out and they're a giant project, and there's a lot of plays, a lot of things going on in there, the playing factor.
See, I would be in, and this is just me thinking as you're speaking. I would be nervous to not get at least 10% to hold their spot. I would hate to like say no to other people when someone said yes 8 weeks before.
Man, that might be wise.
Something to consider. A 10% lock in your spot in our schedule, and then 40% 2 weeks out.
I like that. I'm probably going to start that tomorrow. That's great.
Cool. Okay. We did 50% at Trifecta, right? We were 80% maintenance, but we did have one install crew, and we did big jobs. And we did a $55,000 job the month before I sold my residential side of it. Yeah. So it wasn't super. There wasn't hardscaping, but it was big installs, plants, irrigation, and sod, right? And that was always a terrible fear of mine because you have to order a couple weeks out, as you're seeing now, for sod, plants, and big orders. And if I didn't at least get 10% to hold that spot, if I was 4 to 6 weeks out, I felt like they could keep shopping around on me. Like, that's great. So put that 10%, maybe hold it. And then I never did now I love the 2 weeks thing you're saying.
Well, the 2 weeks,
I like that because I like that 2 weeks out. Hey, we're 2 weeks out. I told you 6 to 8 weeks. We're at, now we've got a clear picture. I really like that. But yeah, that's cool if you do that.
Yeah. And they're all different. Like I said, I mean, some of these are 1 day drainage jobs. I don't really need a big deposit on that.
No,
I mean, you don't. But if we're getting to big hardscape jobs, if it's something like 10K and above.
5 figures. Yeah. 5 figures.
And
totally agree.
Yeah. So.
Totally.
Yeah. Great. I mean, honestly, for us, it's just there's not a certain thing. That's probably what we try to do the best. And then just making sure, I mean, you probably know this, but just, I feel like every few months you have to relook at how you're pricing stuff.
Definitely quarterly. Definitely. If you're not doing it monthly.
Yeah.
Definitely quarterly.
Man, I'm not pricing right. Like I'm not, why are we stretching, And so, that's just kind of where we get. And so it starts feeling like, all of a sudden, I mean, yesterday I sent some quotes out. I'm like, I'm getting aggressive. I mean, just like like tired of not killing it on this one, And so, just different jobs.
And that's a great thing about pricing is when you start getting a little bit in demand, you can be a little more aggressive.
Yeah,
So that's I like that. So I did an episode recently. The rule of thumb I did at Trifecta was I want to have 6 to 8% of expected yearly revenue in the bank in cash.
That's great. Okay.
So if you do, and I didn't make that number up, but where I came with that was I want at least a month of payroll and at least a month of expenses. And so that normally comes out to that 6%. So let's just do a round number. If you're at $1 million you're expecting $1 million for the year, you're carrying cash of, really, I say 6, it's really 8% is really perfect. So if you have 80 grand, and your payroll's running, think about it, your payroll's running 7-8 grand a week, and it's 32,000 for the month. And then you got your expenses should usually match payroll or close to it. So that's 60. So
I would say, I mean, if we're getting transparent, that's about where we sit probably like this.
And that's super healthy. Like, and then something I've been working on recently was I've been getting a lot of questions about debt, like how much debt is too much. As like, I don't like debt. Don't like it, but I'm not going to say comfortable, but I'm willing to bend a little bit because the equipment is so crazy. And the one thing I started working on, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, is why I'm saying it. It's not like I've started saying you should only have as much debt as that number of 6 to 8%. So,
yeah.
so if you have a truck and a excavator and it's 62,000, then like, hey, you can easily make those payments. And if things hit the fan, you can just pay them off.
Yep.
So that was something I've been working on I didn't know what your thoughts were on like debt load.
Yeah, man. I mean, for us, yeah, it comes down to like almost a monthly expense. Like, hey, would this monthly expense on the skid steer match for what we're going to use it for? And if that thing pays for itself 10 times over, in a personal way, that was our theory for getting a boat last year. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
if we take the boat out 20 times, then that pays like what we paid for the boat. We're like, that pays for, a few rentals, or whatever,
Totally.
And so we're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And so that's kind of how we are. We're like I said, we're kind of, and even like we bleed so much because like literally our name is on the shirt. So I'm not afraid to like bleed in. Hey, what's my personal goal? What's my business goal? And so like,
Yeah.
with all that stuff, we take on that debt. Well, we've got business cards that we do that have points on it. And we use those points. Like, yeah, I could use those to put back in the business. But for that, I usually take that and I'm like,
vacation.
My girls have like, felt this in this season. And so I'm going to take those points. And I mean, I took my wife to California this past January completely on points. And it was like, that's freaking awesome. And so we've already tripled them back up just with how busy we are. And so like, yeah, man, I think it's just, I think it's a case by case. Like I could definitely be way more like an accountant, like, and I could probably, use that, which I do have good accountants that help us out a ton. And we check in often, but I'm much more like, hey, I mean, even with the cash flow stuff, it's like, all right, are we making sure that we've got cash flow? Are we making sure everybody's paid? In 4 years, I've never missed a payday with our guys. And I'm like, praise God. And there's been a couple times I've held off from our own personal, but not much. I mean, and the thing that's in that too is just, we pay ourselves a normal just salary. We work for the business and it kind of helps us to submit to that. And make sure.
I just talked to a guy yesterday, Steven, about this. Is that a lot of landscape owners, hopefully guys listening right now, key in on this. The business has to be paid and you have to be paid. Mm-hmm. The business is its own entity that has to make profit for the health of itself. You just happen to own it.
Yes.
So just like the car has to get oil changes and new tires by itself, regardless of who's driving it, it has to have that stuff done. So I don't mean to stop you there, but that's something I was just talking to a coaching call yesterday with this guy, explaining to him because he's solo. He was like, why don't I just pay myself more if I'm labor and profit, the business? I said, no, you're not. That's my point. The business takes this profit and you get to, at the end of the year, if you want to take from that, so be it.
Yeah.
But it has to have a sum of money so the business can make decisions apart from you.
Absolutely.
Apart from you. So I love that. Okay, let me wrap us up, man. This has been so great. I like to ask this question. I've been starting to ask like a question as we leave an episode. What would be the thing, looking back 4 years ago, if you were talking to a guy like you 4 years ago, what would you tell him to watch out for, or what would you tell him to strive to be? So a warning and make sure you make the main thing type.
Like I said, I can't speak for everybody. Not everybody is a family guy. Not everybody's a believer. And so I'm like, that's honestly been one of the cool things that I've liked, is getting to know all different types of people.
Me too.
And it's opened my mind up, and it's been really, really cool. For me, I would say, unfortunately, watch out for people. Like for me, the people, whether it's clients or employees, are the best and the worst part of this whole thing.
So good.
They are the thing that will make you want to get up in the morning and keep doing it. And like, man, I love being able to crack jokes with clients that I've got that just trust me, and I love them. And I love fulfilling a job where you do have a high-end client sometimes, and you crush the job. And then sometimes you get those clients that are like, man, if you don't stop, I'm going to drop you, because I promise your maintenance account is not feeding my family right now. And so I don't have to listen to this. And so that's the kind of thing, like, hey, like I'm very, very like transparent with that. My guys laugh at me, like my maintenance guys. They're like, dude, people don't like, you'll drop people in a heartbeat. I was like, absolutely. I'm in this thing for joy. If I was in it just to make millions and millions of dollars, I wouldn't have half the employees I do, but I'm in it for joy. And so that joy, if somebody's trying to take that joy, and I feel, if we're legitimately doing a bad job, I'm going to own that.
You own it.
But sometimes, like the world, like people in general, I'm this way. We're all entitled, and we think it has to be done right now. This is it. Like, I am the most important thing in my world. And so I would say invest in people and watch out for people. Just have discernment. Have discernment on who you bring on your team, because I promise, like, the heartache of paying somebody really well that's worth it is far less than the heartache of having really bad employees. And I mean, honestly, and then if you get that feeling, like for me, there's been a couple of times I really wanted the job because of what it was going to pay or what I felt like it could give us. But in my gut, I knew all along, don't take this.
Not the right.
This person might be crazy. And they were.
Right.
And so, that's the kind of stuff I would say just watch for. The thing I would say strive to be, because I believe nothing comes back in vain, is just be a person of integrity. 100%. Like, there's always going to be somebody that can get to a job faster than you. And honestly, there's probably going to be somebody that can do it even maybe a little better than you. You never know. But strive for integrity. And like, because integrity does do it right the first time. It does communicate.
It shows up day in and day out.
Pick up your phone. And also sometimes, like, I mean, you answer your phone, but also I think integrity also can allow you to say, I do have boundaries. And I've even told some of my best clients who I love the most, like, hey, I got boundaries. I'll get with you tomorrow. I got a separate phone on the weekends.
Right.
And you know what? Like, the world keeps spinning, and I woke up today and it's all good. And so be a person of integrity where you own your mistakes. I've spent a lot of times over the last 4 years writing refund checks for maintenance clients that when my guys didn't show up, or they weren't happy with service, or we had charged them and they dropped us, or I dropped them. There's some people I'm like, hey, we're no longer going to be able to service you. I understand. We just charge your credit card. I'm going to write you a check. It'll be in the mail this week. Like, I've paid out thousands of dollars just to, it wasn't for a good Google review. It was just for, hey, maintain integrity, be that guy. What's a few $100 like to be a man of your word. And so, man, that would be that, because I feel like that will, I mean, scripture says it all over the place. Like, the Lord will not turn his eye from that. And so it might not be now, it might not be in 5 years, but eventually it will come back where you're like, man, like you look back and it's like, you know what? We weren't the biggest landscape company, but I was happy. I got to see my daughters grow up. I got to be a great husband to my wife. And like, I mean, I saw a thing a minute ago that Jerry Seinfeld saying, like, what happened when, he's basically like, all the jobs now, all it talks about is money. He was like, I remember in the 70s and 80s, it's like, who had the coolest job? He goes, that meant you're able to enjoy your life. He goes, I want the cool job. And he's like, that's why I became a comedian. And I'm like, that's dead on. Like, this is not always the coolest thing, but you know what? It provides a great life for us. And we've just maintained, try to have integrity, try to be real. And, I'm human. And so sometimes I shoot my mouth off and I get upset and it gets hot. August is hot. But
Yep.
it's like, hey, be a good person, instill that into your guys, or your girls, or whoever works for you, and man, I promise it's going to pay dividends, in the future. That's usually where the referrals come from. It's word of mouth.
And that's where the faith is. Like you
Yeah.
said, like you said this off air about the client you're working with now. You were on a local podcast. You probably never dreamed a client like this would find you from a local podcast, right? But you put yourself out there and you say the truth, and then people find you. And the thing I was going to say to wrap up on my end was, when I sold my company a year ago from last week, one thing that somebody told me that I didn't always believe was, hey, they're going to find somebody else. Like, and they're not going to remember you pretty much. Don't take yourself so seriously, because people will move on. And bro, almost nobody of my clients called me when we sold.
Yep.
We got emails back and forth, and they all pretty much stayed with the company I sold to. The big accounts I had for half a decade got maybe one text from one of the main people, and the other 20, nothing. And which is no problem. I'm just saying, like, it was a very sobering reminder that you're not in this for other people in terms of their approval or their words. You're in this for joy. I love the joy piece. And it's what's the rhythm for your life that fits you, and make a quote we say on the show sometimes is, your business needs to fit around your life, not your life around your business.
100%.
And I love that, man. Steven, this has been awesome, dude. Thank you so much for being on. You guys, I'll put in the intro and where people can find you, Steven, on social media if they want to see your sweet projects, and
it's great.
Just DM you and ask you anything. But brother, this was so great. I know it's going to impact a lot of people. And so everybody, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Green Up Academy podcast. This is Stephen Cope from Cope and Crew in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. I'm Alex Kirby. We'll see you next time.